Welcome to the CitiesR4living Podcast, an official podcast of the International Project Management Association. Join hosts Dr. Beverly Passian from the Netherlands and Peter Ahmad from South Africa as they explore this world of smart and livable cities. Through the stories and perspectives shared by project managers across the globe, each episode seeks to offer valuable insights, practical advice, and engaging discussions on the latest best practices in the project management field. The CitiesR4living podcast is for project managers, built environment professionals, and community groups interested in expanding a community of practice, maximizing the impacts of projects across the globe, and enhancing the quality of life for all citizens. Welcome to this episode of the IPMA's CitiesR4living podcast. And in this episode, we travel across time zones and continents and welcome Dr. Surekha Deshmukh from her home base in Pune, India. Surekha is a distinguished expert in the field of electrical engineering, holding a PhD in that very field of electrical engineering, and she currently serves as a domain consultant at the Internet of Things and Digital Engineering unit of TATA Consultancy service based in Pune. She served as a senior member of the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, the IEEE, for 25 years, and she's chaired a number of their task teams and working groups, including the Smart Cities Committee's Women in Engineering Group and the Ad Hoc Committee on Technology for a Sustainable Climate. In the episode, we delve into Surekha's journey, her contributions to the field of electrical engineering, and her insights and reflections on the future of smart cities and sustainable technology. We'll explore key topics such as the impact of technology on modern engineering, the role of women in that space, and the importance of sustainable practices across the industry and the electrical value chain. It promises to be an enlightening conversation. I think anybody within the project management space or thinking about smart cities will really benefit from Surekha's insights. And as always, we really hope you enjoy this episode. So it's just gone 4:30 here in Cape Town and up north in Utrecht in the Netherlands. Absolutely delighted to welcome again for another conversation my colleague, my co-host, my partner in crime, Beverly Passian. Bev, how are you keeping? Are you well?
Hey, Pete, how are you? I'm great. Yeah, I'm hopefully positioned well with my brand new, fancy schmancy Yeti microphone. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Well, you're certainly in the elite of podcasters there.
Am I really?
Yeah, very jealous.
Hopefully my technology won't outshine my contributions.
I'm sure it's going to be equal measure. Last time we spoke, I think you said it was extremely warm by your side. Now we're moving to a part of the world, crossing time zones, crossing continents, to Asia, to India, to Pune, to Dr. Surekha Deshmukh. Surekha, it's lovely to have you with us. How are you keeping? And tell us, what's the weather like your way today?
Oh, yes. So my goodness. See, this is exactly what we see and say that, this is a small world. I'm here in India talking to both of you, part of this world, and I'm from Pune. Talking about weather over here, it's absolutely pleasant, drizzling, raining.
Oh, is it?
And lovely greenery around me. So it's so clean and green. I'm enjoying it. Totally.
Oh, good.
Well, thank you for taking time out from the rains and the weather to join us today, Dr. Surekha. It's really great to have you with us. And perhaps before we get into some of the details around sort of smart technology and what it's doing in the electrical engineering space, perhaps you'd like to give us a bit of background, and then Bev, you can pick it up in terms of how the two of you met. But
sure.
Over to you first, Surekha. You tell us a bit about your background and what got you into the engineering side.
Perfect. So Peter and Beverly, once again, thank you very much for inviting me to have this wonderful conversation with you. I am an electrical engineer. I did my master's in power systems, which is a very core area in electrical engineering. And I feel great to mention to you that I'm PhD in electrical engineering. And by the way, it's been more than 15 years that I have completed my doctoral research. And this is also in the hardcore domain of electricity value chain. And that's exactly what is that I see today, whatever research that I have done almost 15 years before, envisioning the kind of trend of technology and trend of industry would evolve. I am witnessing those changes and evolution right now, which we call as energy transition, decarbonization, and the overall journey of entire globe to net zero. I feel great that, I could able to envision, foresee the need of society to be able to contribute by virtue of my research. This is as per my research is concerned, Peter, and right now I am part of TCS, Tata Consultancy Services. I contribute there as domain consultant for utility industry, and I take care of providing solutions which are specifically deep tech solutions for electricity value chain, transforming their overall journey, digitizing their journey, and enabling this sustainable industry transformation for electricity utility industry. Whenever I get chance, I do contribute for oil and gas industry, manufacturing industry also. This is exactly what has been my so far contribution at my professional level. Your question, Peter, you mentioned about what made me to think of engineering to be my profession or to be the place. And this question made me to go back to my, literally college days or rather school days where I used to see my father who was mechanical engineer. And I have been seeing him contributing significantly from his specialization in mechanical engineering. And that's exactly something that triggered me to look at myself also in the same shoes of engineers, engineering, and, being able to contribute to the world. That was the motivation for me to think of engineering as my career and profession.
It is wonderful to hear about the relationship and the heritage that you are inheriting from your father. And it's interesting that you raised that, because one of the questions I wanted to ask you was about your own growth and your own evolution as an engineer. Do you think that 15 years ago when you did your PhD, the electricity value chain would have been such a focus for you?
So the 15 years before, when I picked up electricity value chain, the reason for this is how you can modernize this legacy industry. That was the basic question in mind, because you need to address those questions which you will foresee. And then the objective of pursuing this PhD was enabling some such sort of approaches and, solution schemas for the world to follow when we really are going to embrace the technology advancements in terms of smart meters, smart technologies. Then, of course, upcoming so many areas which come into picture, We really need to take electricity value chain into consideration. This is the only industry, with me, that produces commodity, transports commodity, and consumes commodity in real time.
It's tremendous that you just identified those three elements, because for our listeners, they might not be as clear on those stages as you just nicely described. So perhaps you could go over that in a little bit more detail for our largely project management audience. What are the steps of the electricity value chain?
Okay, perfect. Normally we start with generation of electricity, and there are many ways to generate electricity. Now, all of us, we know that, what has happened because of fossil-based generation on the overall climate. Anciently, earlier days, normally electricity used to get generated by fossil-based fuel, that is coal. So majority of generation of electricity, when it used to happen by fossil-based generation, that it used to have a lot of emission. And the impact of emission, which used to be decades earlier, now we are witnessing that particular impact in terms of climate change, in terms of erratic weather. But first element in this entire value chain is generate electricity. Now, how are we complementing the impact of those earlier versions with the help of technology is now embracing through clean technologies, green technologies. And now we are really transitioning systematically away from fossil-based coal generation into renewable generation, green generation. Let's use natural resources, which is God gift to us. That is what? Solar energy, wind energy. And then you see that shift in the conventional way of generation of electricity into this very environmental supportive mode of generation, which is renewable. Now, once you generate electricity, then you really need to transmit it across thousands of kilometers of network. We call this as transmission network. And of course, this transmission network, as it is carrying very high quantum of power, we really need technology to monitor the health of this infrastructure and ensure that this power is being transmitted at all required technical norms. I will not get into the details of the technical norms, but for simplicity, you have a very big lines to transmit that power. And then you come to the customer end, consumer like all of us, where we are going to consume the electricity. So that's a value chain starting with generation, transmission, distribution. And then we are the consumer who is going to consume that electricity. But when it comes to us, it's a social responsibility on us now.
And it's that social responsibility, particularly with the right to lighting, that I know you've presented on in the past and you're an expert on. But before we get to that, if you could give us an example, please, of where a disruption might occur in the electricity value chain.
Just if I can come in there, Surekha, just in terms of particularly on the smart tech, the technology has changed, what those disruptors may have been that are starting to allow us to work towards these noble goals of net zero, etc.
So when we talk about the technology, I do look at technology as the key disruptor, enabling the entire transformation and change. To give you some examples, let's again start with generation. Here, the renewable energy, that is your green technology, does not only restrict to solar and wind, but you do have a horizon of low carbon electricity technology playing its role, like hydrogen technology. There is a biogas technology. And of course, renewable like solar and wind technology is also there, changing this overall conventional way of generation. But when I come to a very asset-heavy transmission system and distribution system, before coming to customer, we take use of drone technology now to actually help transmission network, distribution network to monitor the health of transmission network and all the assets that you have. So just to name some technologies, what we leverage day to day is AR, VR. Believe me, Peter and Bivani, the way we utilize augmented reality and virtual reality as a disruptor, a good disruptor, because all the engineers, operators, and workers who are there handling and managing this value chain, they deal with high voltage, they deal with live equipments and assets. And that's why AR, VR plays very important role in making them understand how the live system works in a virtual way. And that actually enhances their confidence in handling them in real time, as well as their level of safety. Ultimately, what we really want is safety of human being, enabling this value chain to be live 24/7. So I have been witnessing this AR, VR getting practiced across different sections and departments, and they have really witnessed enhancement in the quality of workmanship, enhancement in the safety of workmanship, as well as availability of this electricity across value chain 24/7. This is one example. Second one is like drone technologies. We never ever thought of people leveraging drone for electricity industry ever. Why? Because you do have so heighted lines and complex network. But the best disruption that has happened in drone plus image analytics plus computer vision and artificial intelligence. So you do get a hybrid model of all these entities come together to monitor your assets and then, see what is happening inside of the equipment. And you get all the triggers, you get all the alarms, and you really keep your system safe, people safe, and 24/7 availability of electricity. So there are many such examples, Peter.
Recognizing I'm here in Cape Town in South Africa, and over the last 10 years or so, we've had significant challenges with our national grid and what we call load shedding, which has been this
Oh,
period of
goodness.
power outages. Now, I know India has been through a number of very severe power outages through the grid, which have affected hundreds of millions of people at a go. How, in terms of your own backyard there, Surekha, in India, have these smart techs, and again, immediately when you start talking about the ability to real time assess the load on the grid, what you need to do to switch between networks. But I mean, has it been more profound? And do you now see that the stability of your energy is better than it was, for example, a decade ago, thanks to these enhancements?
Absolutely, Peter. What a question. I mean, I really love that question. For a very main reason is I feel proud. I feel proud to be an Indian. I feel proud to be an Indian power professional because I have been witnessing the change in Indian power sector for last 28 years. And when I actually started my PhD in year 2002, the mention of load shedding used to be there. Absolutely. And just to help everyone who is listening to this podcast understand why one really needs to do this load shedding, the very simple reason is when there is unbalance between generation and load, you really need to balance it by shedding some load. And when you shed some load, by the way, who gets impacted and affected is the customer and consumer. And then, of course, there is more dissatisfaction level to the customer. The customer has to invest into diesel generator, which is added cost to the customer. And if you see the overall ecosystem, then I don't think that ecosystem is very happy. Now comes a question that how Indian power sector has addressed this particular issue. There are two ways, by which Indian power sector actually addressed this issue. And today, if you ask me, there is no single minute of load shedding today. But it took some very constructive, strategic, regulatory amendments and policy building at a national level, where we call them the organizations as Central Electricity Authority, Central Electricity Regulatory Commissions, then all state electricity regulatory commissions. So all these commissions, all these authorities, as well as Power Grid Corporation of India, Ministry of Power, on two ways they have really acted on. One, investment into advanced metering infrastructure to be able to observe grid at high voltage side, low voltage side, as well as enabling and rolling up the program of smart meters so that not only they get information and data from the substations, however, they will also get information and data from customer side. And I feel so privileged that I got opportunity to work with many such real-time problem statements in Indian geography, working with state load dispatch center Kalwa, working with many substation authorities to actually curate that data which they used to get from the meters, and then derive and build some sort of solutions which will help them to identify the areas where there is priority customers which are staying. There are some sort of such areas where there is theft of electricity happening. So we could able to develop many such opportunities of benefiting citizens in such a way that we will provide them electricity to maximum ability and make them get their light maximum 24/7 via monitoring their behavior, even advising these citizens to, follow the basic principles of energy conservation, energy saving, utilize all standard equipment so that there will not be loss of electricity. This is what we did. And on other side, so one was smart meters, smart technology, data analytics, AI, ML sort of, algorithms to build and predict the load, predict generation, and then try to optimize it. One. And on second side, most important part is regulatory, interventions. Now, when we say regulatory interventions, interestingly, those regulatory interventions were primarily at state level also. Because of these regulatory interventions, which we used to call earlier days, availability-based tariff, which is demand response program. Now, what we observe is grid discipline, Beverly. And Peter, grid discipline, that's most important. Every state is been disciplined in terms of their actions on withdrawal of power from the grid, managing their entire internal generation, managing the citizens' load. And they could able to optimize that. And if you ask me what's the end result? End result is exactly stable grid, reliable grid, quality power throughout the grid. And my citizens are happy because we are giving them power.
Grit and discipline. That really resonates with me. And I think it's a responsible sort of discipline that should be embraced by industries beyond electricity. In your first answers to our questions, you used the word customer and client a couple of times, but mostly customer. The use of the word citizen, I think, is perhaps a reflection of your own evolution as a professional and your own evolution of the importance between the electricity provider, the city, and their obligations to the citizen. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. Yeah. And there is another dimension to give importance to citizens. The reason for that is like in this entire ecosystem of electricity industry, gone those days where there used to be a supplier and a customer relationship. Now, interestingly, this world, and this is a paradigm shift that you see not only in India, but across globe, that now we really see our citizens playing critical role in the overall journey of net zero of electricity utility industry, not only in India, across globe. How is this happening? This is happening primarily because of solar PV rooftop, which are installed on your citizens' home. And now they are the producer of electricity. We call them as Prosumer primarily.
It's one of the few industries, I think, where the citizen as storyteller should be enabled and should be given more platforms, because how many other industries are there where the utility has such widespread use and is of such primary importance? Why don't we hear more from the citizens in their role in this relationship, I wonder? And what can we as professionals in the smart city world, what can we do perhaps to hear more from citizens?
That's a perfect proposition from your side. When we say citizens, we do have different classifications of citizens from the utility industry point of view. Like I do have prosumers, and utility industry would be happy to engage with prosumers who are the set of citizens.
Prosumers? Sorry.
Prosumer. Yes.
Oh, please. Sorry, I have to stop you. What is that word?
Prosumers. Lovely. Okay, I'm so happy to explain that to you. Prosumer is a category of citizens who do have solar PV on their rooftop. Prosumer. What does that mean? It means that I am a producer of electricity as well as I am a customer of electricity, because I generate electricity and I consume electricity also. That's why they call it as prosumer. And
I've never heard, Pete, have you heard that word before?
We've typically talked about it here in South Africa as independent power producers, IPPs, but this is a new word that I'm hearing of.
Prosumer is better.
But this is definitely a new word for the
Then I do have a lot to talk on this, because IPP is like, these are the merchant power producers, and prosumer, they are small, household customers. And interestingly, in India, we do have a target of becoming, say, net zero by 2050, 2070. And to be able to give power to citizen, you really need to give opportunity to citizen to be the producer of electricity. And in India, we do have this target of becoming green and have green energy to the tune of 500 megawatts. And if you really want to reach to that high magnitude, you really need to work as a bottom-up approach. And with this bottom-up approach, each citizen in the city is entitled and encouraged to have a rooftop generation. So having this rooftop, becoming a prosumer, they become an helping hand and handhold to the customer, to the electricity industry. How does that relationship work? Whenever there is extra generation, as a prosumer, I can definitely, sell that power to the grid. And I get advantage of investing into green energy, selling that electricity to grid with a negotiate, with this contractual price. But that helps me to gain return on investment and gaining that particular benefit of generating electricity and definitely pumping that into grid. For that matter, you do have changes and amendments in the policies in such a way that there are tariffs. We call this as feed-in tariff. It is called as net metering. You generate, you consume, whatever extra you have, you do feed that power into grid, and then you are going to get that advantage. That's why you encourage citizens to become prosumer, because there is subsidy also on this. So Government of India, Ministry of Power, they also have enabled citizens with subsidy.
What strikes me, Surekha, is we've seen India's economy completely transform over the last, 2-3 decades. Fundamental transformation. Growth rates at the moment, if I read correctly, is beyond 6-7%. So what you've been able to do on the one hand is expand your capacity, expand your production. You've been able to meet the demand, which is obviously always a challenge of, is there enough power in order to power the industry, the commerce that is driving the economy?
Yeah.
At the same time, you've done it in a clean way, which is absolutely double benefit. I am interested in understanding India's other side of the coin, the sort of the poverty that is associated with many of the informal settlements and areas in and around the cities. How is some of that technology reaching the poorest of the poor? And are you seeing that the electrification of settlements that have previously been, or that are impoverished, being able to benefit from some of this tech? I guess what I'm getting to here is, on the one hand, this massive growth of India as a major player in the global economy. At the same time, the ability to reach to those most in need, and where that is starting to pay dividends. Thank you.
Absolutely. And that's the social impact and the social change that we really would like to observe whenever we talk about growth and transformation and development. And I agree with the fact that, yes, year by year, there is going to be increase in the demand. And how do you cater to this overall increase in demand when, as per your mega power generation capacities and potential projects are concerned, the amount of investment which is required for such mega projects is enormously huge. The solution to this is let every house become the source of electricity. And that is the change that we have been seeing in India, that there is distributed energy resources. And as now the energy is distributed, you do have these resources, natural resources getting harnessed because of regulatory incentivization and required green finance also coming up with increased awareness among citizens. So what I would like to explain or share with you is, there is a dedicated effort being taken by NGOs, taken by governments, taken by even professional organizations like IEEE, which I belong to that IEEE community for the last 25 years. So what we have been doing is we have been creating awareness among citizens, making them understand the importance of their role in this overall green energy and green technology, and trying to appreciate the initiatives of governments, come forward and adapt that particular change. And I see that change with more and more, prosumers coming into place. And I really want to take this opportunity to talk more about IEEE, being the world's largest professional organization, how it's actually accelerating our efforts towards citizen development. We established one special interest group. The objective of that special interest group was primarily to create awareness among citizens on the fundamentals of electricity, which is, energy efficiency, energy saving, energy conservation, and making your own campus sustainable. So we call this special interest group as efficient, energy efficient, and sustainable campus-driven initiative. The title is Energy and Environmental Engineering Task Group. But we have created an ecosystem of citizens, engineering colleges, science colleges, city authorities to come together and come up with some sort of a roadmap of the actions and activities that we really need to take into considerations to make our campus energy efficient, waste free. There should not be any loss of energy, loss of water, and make your campus green, clean.
Does that roadmap include special attention toward different genders or the aging population? Those are two stakeholders for me that are incredibly important and often overlooked in the world of smart city projects. And I know within the IEEE community, women in engineering, for example, pay enormous attention, rightfully, to that critical stakeholder. What focus is there on those two groups within your college environment?
Okay, so here, how do we cater to these important strata? One is youth, and second one is experience elder community. So again, as you know, via IEEE, we do have connect with NGOs. We really focused on reaching out to schools. And when we say we reach out to schools as a part of important segment of the city, we do that via our youth, like our engineering students. So we have created such sort of climate warrior. I can call them as climate warriors. They know the climate change. They know the climate adverse impact. They know the role of technology, how we can address or combat this particular climate issue. Plus, they really want to create more awareness with school students related to even engineering community, technology trend which is there, and try to trigger the interest of students related not only engineering, by the way, STEM education, I should say. It's science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and I really don't want to forget arts also. So we always say this is STEM to STEAM. That has to be the overall, inclusion whenever you try to select any sort of, say, professional inclination. So this is how we really try to engage with school students. And the second one is say senior, elder community. At a city level, there are many NGOs who work with them on two ways. One is even in IEEE also. Via IEEE, we had run a kind of an initiative which was minimize the digital divide. So when you say digital divide, we always see elders, there is a lot of inhibition, I should say. There is a lot of inhibition that they have towards digital infrastructure and the digital enablement and the digital advancement via their mobile, via every day-to-day activity that you do. That's why, we have run this initiative again to create awareness amongst elders to make them feel comfortable about the change that they see. That's an important initiative under Smart City.
I'm so glad to hear that. It is the decade of healthy aging right now. The last decade was devoted to cities. And right now it's according to the World Health Organization or the UN or a combination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The decade of healthy aging. And it is surprising to me that so little attention is given to all important stakeholder in these discussions.
This part of the conversation takes me back to the conversation with Erin. Within the Calgary perspective, she was talking about how they've got dedicated programs to assist the elderly with this digital divide and how they go about. So I think that's on the one hand. I guess another element that is somewhat linked to this, Surekha, would be the gender dynamic here of women in the industry, the engineering discipline, and how that is maybe changed over the last few decades, your observations, and really, if particularly for those who are listening to this, perhaps trying to get inspired by different parts of the world and different people's backgrounds, what would your words of encouragement be to a young professional of any agenda listening to this saying, well, I need to follow in Dr. Surekha's footsteps?
Oh, what a beautiful question, Peter. And yes, I have come to that stage and age that, yes, I can have my views in terms of making my listeners get influenced in a positive way. Interestingly, what's most important for you is like, irrespective of your gender, you are an individual. You are born with the wings. I always follow this philosophy that each one is unique. You are born with the wings and you really need to fly. You really need to aim to fly. And when you really need to aim to fly, you really need to strengthen your wings. And how will you strengthen your wings? You will strengthen them by correct education. Education is the fundamental strength that will empower you to, take that and fly, definitely, and touch the, sky. Then sky is the limit. No matter what kind of specialization that you would like to get yourself engaged into, important is it has to have some purpose. It has to have some engagement in terms of making you feel contributory that, yes, if I am an electrical engineer, what am I doing for my society? What am I doing for my community? Is it only for the sake of degree and getting some sort of salary and getting paid and I am an electrical engineer? The answer is no. If I'm an electrical engineer, let me see how the best I serve my society. And then there are many ways to serve the society. For example, I am an IEEE member. Being into IEEE for the last 25 years is my way to serve my society. Because what I have right now is my knowledge, my experience and expertise. And then if I disseminate that to my next generation, this is the best way for me to serve back to society. And Beverly, Peter, this is really a coincidence that on 29th of August, just 2 days before, I completed 25 years of volunteering to IEEE and I got recognized for that also. And then that made me absolutely nostalgic.
Congratulations. Yeah. That's wonderful. I knew that you'd been involved for many years. You and I met, actually, and I think it was at the 22-year mark. That's right.
Yes.
A few years ago. And you're at 25 now. Well done. Congratulations. It's that service I find a very satisfying part of professional life. And IEEE is, along with IPMA, a welcoming place to develop my own wings, to keep that metaphor going. What do you think would be the priorities of newcomers to electrical engineering and those who might want to deepen their contribution to the electricity value chain?
Yes, of course. I would be more than happy to, advocate and advise the newcomer in this particular industry. Today's industry and the way it is changing, transforming is absolutely on an accelerated frontier. And that's why any graduate coming out and joining industry today has to really be a great learner, quick learner. And he or she needs to be agile in terms of technology, agile in terms of processes, agile in terms of overall state of mind that they really need to carry along with them. Why? Because there is no concept that we call a stationary way of working. Everything is changing so fast. And in my opinion, change is the only constant thing and change is the only permanent thing that we see. That's why I really want my youth to be ready to learn, to be ready to adapt, to ready to innovate, to ready to explore, and always keep in mind that what the best I should deliver. And of course, they really need to learn the changing tools, technologies like data analytics, say AI, ML, Gen AI, that's fine. These are all tools. They will keep on evolving. Important is the application and a purpose of the tool for the fundamental outcome that we expect from the problem statement where you are applying those tools. It means what are you improving? What are you enhancing? How are you focusing on the positive change that you really want to bring and the difference that you really want to make? So be a good learner and a contributor.
A good learner and a good contributor to the quality of life of the community in which you live.
Absolutely.
That is the core theme of my work and one of the messages that you and I first started talking about within IEEE Smart Cities. It is the message that I hear more and more throughout these podcasts, that every project, every decision, every line of engineering, design and application has to be toward that ultimate goal.
Absolutely.
And if it is not something that encouraged amongst our younger professionals, then the future is going to be fairly bleak. But thankfully, I have a lot of hope for our upcoming project managers and upcoming engineers. And by the sounds of it, you do too.
Absolutely. And they are smarter. My next generation. This is
That's
God's
true.
gift, by the way. This is what we call it's nature's rule. Next generation is always smarter than earlier one for a very valid reasons.
Absolutely.
I'm very, very confident and promising about next generation who would
Absolutely.
take care of humanity, who would take care of nature, who would take care of everyone around us empathetically.
Something tells me that irrespective of where AI and all the other smart tech is going to take us, if I need to change a plug, I'm still going to need somebody to do that. So I'd like to believe that the electrical engineering fraternity still has major contributions to play in the household and all the way through to the global change. But Surekha, from our side, from Beverly and myself, thank you so much for taking the time out in your evening, in your own time to really share some real nuggets of gold and truly inspiring. I think, again, it's been really interesting to hear your take. And again, from my side, I would say a humble town planner. I'm not a project manager. I'm not an engineer. But this idea of how you've gone about linking the importance of the grid to city growth, to economic growth, more strength to what you're doing there. And thank you for sharing. Perhaps you would like to leave us with where people can find out more about IEEE Pune and the work that you're doing there, or there may be websites, LinkedIn. I'm not sure. I have seen you've got quite a wide span of social and web-based tech. Perhaps you just want to point people in the right direction.
The main web page of IEEE, it is www.ieee.org. That website is the ocean of information pertaining to IEEE and the technology, role of technology, all technical societies of IEEE and allied many strategic committees like Planet Positive 2030, Future Directions Committee, IEEE Smart Cities Committee, IEEE Smart and Sustainable Lighting Committee, IEEE Standards Association. It's an ocean. It's an ocean. And I'm very sure that listener will be happy to deep dive in the ocean to, extract the knowledge that they really would like to have. That's one. And second thing is from Indian perspective, we do have an site of Central Electricity Authority, Central Electricity Regulatory Commissions. All states do have their own websites related to, commissions, plus whatever I spoke on the ministry and the regulations and the policies that they have. They can get them on the websites of Government of India and Ministry of Power.
And your specific work, are there? Yes, please.
Okay, I'm very
Absolutely.
easily accessible. It's on LinkedIn, I'm there on LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to get connected to
Please.
many of the listeners. Yes.
Absolutely.
You will find me on LinkedIn.
It's terrific. Thank you very much.
Surekha, then from our side, again, thank you so much. We really hope this is not the first and last time that we engage. I think so many of the things that you've talked to us about, we could go deep into. And again, I think particularly the message that you've given us for the young professional, I think that was really powerful. Something there about mentoring and or the strengthening the enthusiasm and the excitement in that space. But from my side, thank you. Bev, last word to you.
Thank you. Last two words. I knew that this was going to be a rich conversation. And as usual, Surekha, you have not disappointed and far exceeded expectations. So thank you very much.
Thank you. A very big thank you to both of you for giving me this chance to have a very nice conversation.
Thank you, Surekha. All the best.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.
Same to you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Beverly. See you then.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the CitiesR4living podcast of the IPMA, the International Project Management Association. Please feel free to send us feedback, your thoughts on the content we provided, and if you'd like to get involved via sur@ipma.world. The SUR standing for Smarter Urban Rural, one of the task teams that's alluded to in one of our pilot episodes. So sur@ipma.world. We'd love to hear your feedback, and please get in contact. Tell us what you think.